Drug overdose deaths have hit record levels. Now, members of Congress are calling on leaders at the border to ramp up security to stop the flow of illegal drugs filtering through at an alarming rate. Well, former acting commissioner of Customs and Border Protection and visiting fellow at FAIR, Mark Morgan, joining us right now. Good morning to you, Mark.
Good morning.
First, I want to talk to you about the flow of drugs right now, because as you've said in the past, right now, border agents have essentially redirected their attention to migrants. There's just not enough personnel to deal with the flow of drugs coming across as well. You've seen it firsthand. You've talked to agents. Give us an idea of the landscape and what's happening right now.
Well, Jan, as we have talked about, the reason why you have agents being pulled off the line is because of this administration's open border policies. They've relegated their national security mission to that of a travel agency. That leaves large areas of border wide open. The 2.1 million encounters in the past 12 months has led to this unbelievable amount of drugs that are pouring in. Look, the cartels not only use these illegal aliens as distraction techniques to pull agents off the line, but they also use them to smuggle drugs themselves. And here's the question we really should be focusing on. Not how many drugs we're seizing, but how many drugs we're not. And if you look at the stats from FBI, DEA, and the fact that we had 100,000 drug overdoses in a 12-month period, that tells us that our border is wide open and drugs are pouring in every single day.
Yeah, a record high number of drug overdoses this past year. Congress, by the way, directing Customs and Border Protection to create this plan to scan 100% of any vehicles crossing the border. I found it surprising that currently right now, less than 5% of vehicles crossing the border from Mexico are actually screened with these powerful high energy scanners that can look deep inside those cargo loads there. So how do these new systems compare to what's been used in the past, Mark?
Yeah, Jan, I'm really glad you're focusing on this, because we rarely hear about this. But here's an element of my frustration, though. Is this administration, this Congress, they're acting like they came up with this plan. And that's simply not true. It's more misdirection and spin. The plan to get to 100% of inspection using this technology has been in there for years. It's just that Congress has failed to adequately fund it every one of these years. There's been a bureaucratic procurement processes that have slowed that down. And the facilities themselves, some of them are just outdated and not adequately suited to actually accept this technology. But the last thing I'll say is this technology has been in place for years, and it is extremely effective. And I'm just glad that this administration is continuing to pursue this.
And can you talk a little bit about this most recent headline that we've been talking about here, with the smugglers recruiting kids here in America through social media to try and get some of these drugs across the border? In fact, one chief patrol agent called this an alarming trend, because teenagers are underestimating the severity of the crimes they are committing.
Yeah, so I'm not sure I completely agree that all 17 and 16-year-olds don't understand the severity of their crime. I think what they see is an easy payday, what they think is an easy payday. And look, this is just an example of how the cartels constantly change their what we call TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures to further their criminal scheme. Look, right now, it's the wild, wild west, and all the schemes that are available to them, they're utilizing them to exploit it. And here's what the cartels know. The cartels know that under this administration, the Department of Justice, they're not going to prosecute these teenagers that are participating in smuggling. That's one reason why they're using them.
And finally, Mark, I want to talk to you about this letter that was sent to ICE Director Ty Johnson. 12 Democratic senators declared ICE failing to provide COVID booster shots to people in ICE detention. The letter explained, quote, COVID poses an active danger to the health and safety of the over 22,000 people detained by ICE each day. The number of COVID cases among detainees has increased by more than 800% since the start of 2022. We've talked about this before, Mark. What are you hearing about conditions at some of these facilities, but more importantly, the fact that so many of these people can cross the border and not have to be vaccinated?
Yeah, Jan, that's the issue. Look, this is just another example of how out of whack the dangerous policies of this administration. Let's look at that 22,000. Back in 2019, the number that ICE had detained was closer to 60,000, even though currently the number of those being encountered at our border are 200-300% higher than that point. So look, it illustrates once again that this administration is using COVID as an excuse to continue those dangerous policies. Because at the end, what that means is ICE is arresting fewer and they're releasing individuals into the country, many of which are not only illegal aliens, but they also have prior criminal convictions and pending criminal charges that have been released back in the interior United States. And real quickly, as you said, if you illegally enter our southwest border, there's no vaccine requirement and there's no testing requirement. But if you're if American citizen in Ukraine wanting to leave a potential war zone, you have to show your vaccination card. Again, another example of absurdity and the alternate universe we're living in right now under this administration.
Mark Morgan, great talking to you this morning. We appreciate it. Have a great week. We'll see you next Tuesday.
You bet. Thanks, Jan.
Thank you.